Well, that took a little bit, didn't it? But we're here, and welcome to another edition of Sunday Night Astro Live. Behind me, I have the Tron graphic, old school Tron, and I felt like it was appropriate for tonight. I don't know if you guys caught Friday's show, where it was myself and Mark Matheny. We got into this very strange world that is headed towards us very, very quickly. And it encompasses the three outer planets plus Saturn. So we have Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius, um, Neptune and Aries, and then Saturn also in Aries. And in my estimation, this period, which starts in 2025 and finally resolves itself in 2029, 2030, is probably the most important time, I think, in human history. And you'll be here to witness it, hopefully. And some of it will be absolutely mind blowing. Some of it will be mind numbing. Some of it will be incredibly demoralizing. Some of it will be strangely optimistic. And a lot of that is going to depend on how fluid you are. Because we're going to get into some as above, so below, as within, so without kind of metaphors tonight. Because where everything is headed in terms of the astrology and technology is really a mirror of some other kind of hyper reality that I think is on its way and available to us. So we're going to get into that tonight, and I'm going to do my best to articulate what I think the upside of where all this is headed. The downside is clear. We can start to see some of the symptoms of the downside, some of which I'm going to actually show you tonight, which is a type of insanity that is brewed when somebody is not really tethered to the ground. And, once Uranus gets out of Taurus, which is in 2025, there's going to be no ground. We won't see any ground until 2030. So we're going to be living in zero G. It'll be like that video by what's his name? The guy with the hat. I'm spacing out on him because he was really kind of a somebody who was a nobody really for a while. What's his name? Oh, come on. He's got the funny Indian name, but he's not Indian. He wears the, I'm talking about. Anyway, it'll come to me. It's like that. How's that for a solid metaphor? God, it'll happen. It'll hit any minute now. It's really rare but if I don't think of somebody for a while, they usually don't get kind of fired up in the memory bank. Now I'm really curious. Let's see, here it is. Hold on. Let's see, total insanity. Jamiroquai, thank you. I knew it would come to me. Jamiroquai. That's kind of what it's like. That's kind of where we're headed. He's kind of moving in one direction, and everything's floating around him, and it's upside down. But that's what it's called, total insanity. And we're headed towards total insanity. I mean, this is where the outer planets are taking us. It's not grounded, completely rootless, and there's an upside to it if you can roll with it. So we'll try to explore some of the upside tonight. And I'll try to make a case for the what I would call the digital cover up of the multidimensional human potential. That's kind of what we're looking at. The digital cover up of the multidimensional human potential. And what's really weird is that there may even be a crossover, right? There may even be a crossover. And so I've talked about like multiple timelines. I've even talked about how I experienced my own life in a very unusual way where it was like a moving wall of plasma. And I stepped through that wall of plasma and I knew exactly who I was and what I was doing in that lifetime. It was like, oh yeah, I know what's going on here. And if that's true, we are living in a multidimensional experience. Even if it's one aspect of that dimension, maybe that dimension wants to make contact with us. In as much in some ways, we want to make contact with it. Because why do people get high? Why do people take ayahuasca? Why do people smoke DMT? Why do they take mushrooms? Why do kids spin around in a circle until they're so dizzy and they can't stand up any longer? They do it to alter their consciousness because I feel like they're trying to, in the words of Jim Morrison, break on through to the other side. So, in as much as we, in our own clumsy attempts, or sometimes very specific through very ritualized means, try to break on through to the other side, maybe the other side is trying to break on through to us. Have you ever given that any thought? And we've had multiple movies, like dozens and dozens of movies over the last 10 years where, they're exploring multiple timelines, multiple universes. The MCU and Marvel is just one of them. So to some extent, right? I mean, maybe we're being primed for something like that. People keep talking about, like, well, I'll give you an example. The latest movie, which is that's a big hit, The Sound of Freedom. One of the theories, and I didn't get into this last week, but one of the theories is that the reason why the people that made that movie is because they're telling you exactly what they did. Right? That's part of the esoteric law that they have to tell you. Usually they have to tell you in advance. That's called predictive programming. So telling you in retrospect, even though the movie was delayed by a couple of years, and maybe that's what they were trying to do, is theoretically an example of that. And I'm not sure if it entirely is, but let's just use that because that's what's being talked about. So if that's the case, then what about all the movies that are incorporating multiple timelines, multiple universes, mini universes, pocket universes, multidimensional experiences? Maybe they're doing the same thing. Maybe they're laying it out that it's all hidden in plain sight. And that maybe what we'll experience here is a bleed through. And I think it's already starting to happen. When we talk about things like the Mandela effect and CERN and kind of blowing a hole in temporal reality, maybe it's not that far off. Maybe that's actually what's really, really happening. And when we really lose the anchor of the outer planets in any form of Earth, then what happens next? We're in a very, very different reality. I mean, it's not uncommon. I mean, we've had periods like this. You can go back to the 80s, where we had Pluto and Libra, and we had Uranus and Scorpio, and we had Neptune and Sagittarius. But through that period, of course, we would have some Saturn cycles, and it would bring us into Earth, or Jupiter cycle would bring us into Earth. But we don't have that, right? We don't have any of that for the next really 5 years. So it's not like even one of the kind of, transpersonal planets anchors us back into 3D. We are headed into the great unknown here. So we talked a little bit about that on Friday with Mark Matheny. If you didn't see that show, it's a good primer for this one. And what I'm going to do is try to get into more of it today and give you kind of an update on the UN stuff. We'll talk about tonight's not going to be a super long show. We'll probably go for maybe about an hour and a half at the most, maybe 90 minutes tonight. But I'm also going to talk about the switch, the nodal switch, which is coming. Like it's happening, I think, Tuesday? So we have the true node going into Aries, south node going into Libra, and man, I think everybody is going to be in fighting position, right? Like when I used to take karate, you bow to your opponents, then you get into fighting position, and then the instructor drops his hand and goes kumite. So with the true node in Aries, everybody's kind of in that fight or flight mode. The adrenaline is super high, super high. Everybody is on red alert, and that goes from people that are just cruising and perusing through city streets to people that are closer to the battlefront, right? And what does it mean for every house where that true node is lining up? Unlike a couple of weeks ago when I had Venus going through all the different houses during the retrograde, which again is coming up. I'm not going to do that visually, but I'll go through the true node for every house. So wherever it's lining up for you, that's where the intention is, right? That's where you want to put your energy for the next 19 months. And if you can do that and move into that part of your evolutionary assignment, then the other part sort of sorts itself out. And sometimes it's challenging because with the true node, it's kind of the unknown country, right? Because with the south node, we know that we've been there and done it. So in our natal charts, when we go into the north node or / true node, I like to use the true node versus the north node. It's not always easy for us because we're not used to it, right? We're used to being in that place that we were before. And the same thing could be said for the true node as it moves through our charts. It gives us a new opportunity to experience unknown country. Let me try and close some of these windows and see if I can get some better usage out of the internet, because it feels like the internet is wonky. So maybe if I close some windows, that might be helpful. Give me a second here. Maybe it's just pulling on all these windows. Let's see, is this better? Let me go back in here. Well, a little bit, I guess. I've only got one bar, which is on the stream, but I've got multiple bars over here. All right, let's see who's here tonight. Let's see who's in the fun house. Let's go all the way to the top. PB, great show on Friday. Mark Matheny is such a great guy. And there are a lot of really, really good comments that were left behind. And one of the things people kept saying, oh, you guys have really great chemistry and you should have Mark on, more in the future. I agree. And one of the reasons why Mark and I have really good chemistry is because he has a decided lack of ego, right? Like at 29 Pisces, there's not much left there, right? He's just kind of pure spirit in some ways. So it's really easy to interact with him and work with him. And yes, we should do more stuff together. If the world wasn't on fire, I would say good times. That's funny. When I think of good times, somehow I think of Disco Inferno. They're kind of around the same period. Maybe Disco Inferno is a little bit later, but they're not far off. Might be as good as it gets. Today's screenshot looks rather dystopian. Ready Player One. If you haven't seen Ready Player One, I highly recommend it because of all these movies where there's a bleed through of 3D and 4D, that one's pretty awesome. And it has a lot of heart. For a Spielberg movie, it has a lot of heart. It's self-referential. It is definitely postmodern because it samples other kind of cultural touch points, like, for instance, The Shining and a number of other kind of movies, characters that were part of the creator of this world, that is inhabited by people who go there to try to find these keys, to unlock this domain. And the actual physical world is pretty dystopian. It's not great. It's not terrible. I've seen worse, but it's not great. But as far as a big budget sort of cyber teen movie goes, I really like it. It has, as its backbone, love's in the picture, having courage. I mean, all the things that we kind of associate with the hero's journey, is in Ready Player One. So don't be too turned off by the screenshot. It's actually a really, really good movie. And I hope they never remake it. And I hope they never make a sequel. Please. Behind me, I have Tron from the late 70s, which is an absolute smashing early cyber classic, where Jeff Bridges, who's a video game developer, finds himself actually inside this game. It's actually a really incredible movie. And the visual effects clearly are dated, but for the time they're super cool. I mean, Disney is kind of way out of their depth on CGI, and it was one of those movies where I think Roy Disney was in charge of Disney, and Tron was kind of a flop back in the day. And there was another science fiction movie they did, with Robert Forster, which was another kind of a flop, and it sort of forced this weird kind of corporate takeover of Disney, because they were trying to move. I think the other movie was The Black Hole, and they were trying to move Disney into more of an adult science fiction contemporary production company. And it's too bad that both of these movies, Tron is a classic, and The Black Hole is better than really what the critics kind of went after. Came out around the same time as Blade Runner. So if you were coming out around the same time as Blade Runner, you really didn't stand much of a chance. But it's not that bad, and Tron is even better. Okay, so who else do we have? Susie Gemini's here. What's happening, Susie Gemini? Meow meow. Yes, it is from Ready Player One. Let's see, who else do we have? Did I say hi to Bo? Hi, Bo. Tom Jordan, what's up, Tomas? Diane Evans is here. Hey, Diane, good to see you. Pingreedy. Pingreedy is here. Hello, Pingreedy. I find it interesting the XRP case was concluded before Fed now goes live tomorrow. Nothing isn't planned, is it? Yeah. So are they going to flip XRP into Fed now? Question mark. Or is XRP going to be allowed to exist in its own parallel universe? All right. Who else do we have here? I think 2025 is the year I agree with Uranus and Gemini for the blockchain switchover. Well, it's the end of money, right? We're going into everything is digital at that point. 2025, everything is digital. And what's interesting is you have a guy like Ron DeSantis, who essentially signed a bill in Florida that said they will not allow any CBDC in Florida. So now you have states that are kind of balkanizing themselves against the CBDC. That's going to be really interesting because DeSantis is, he's running for president. And I guess if he runs for president, he can no longer be the governor of Florida, right? So he has to drop out. He has to have a successor ready to go and named. And whoever comes in after DeSantis can veto that. It's not like, oh yeah, no CBDC from here until infinity, to the end of time. I'm not sure that that's how the bill is actually written. But I could see, um, smaller pockets of the United States at a county level, at a city level, that'll say no to the CBDC. It's going to get real interesting. So then you're going to have like competing systems, competing currencies. And one of the things that I wanted to get into tonight was something along the lines of a memory wipe. And we're kind of getting close to it. When we get into Gen Z, whom I love, I think Gen Z are great. When you get into Gen Z, it was really interesting. I was on with Longo and his crew. We're talking astrology and football. And there was like, sort of the Marianas Trench where they just couldn't go. Like I brought up Jack Tatum, who played safety for the Oakland Raiders. And, his nickname was the Assassin. He was a Scorpio. He was all perfect, right? And they were like, kind of like their sort of touch points kind of end at Peyton Manning. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you understand that, and you're dealing with a group of people who really don't have any, a whole lot of kind of, well, let's call it prehistorical knowledge of things, the memory wipe gets a lot easier. And then when you go onto the internet and start to do searches like we talked about on Friday's show, the shit just isn't there anymore. Like you'll go to 40 pages and that's it. It's like no more. Like they've just coned off the internet, and then the 40 pages you get are really not very interesting. So that leads itself to this whole idea of a memory wipe. And when you get into a memory wipe, if you go far enough, like you get into, let's say, Gen A, which would be the reset generation, like they could have absolutely, if it goes down a certain timeline, they could have absolutely no idea as to what happened in the 1950s or the 40s or the 60s or even the 70s for that matter. Let's say, for instance, a lot of the art from that time is deemed culturally repressive. They could just get rid of it all. You could just get rid of it all. You wouldn't be able to see movies from the 50s or the 60s or the 70s or the 40s. You know what I mean? I mean, you just be like, that was all a byproduct of a society that was really prejudiced and privileged. So we don't want to promote the memory of that. So you think that can't happen? It could totally happen. And so what's left to populate, those spaces and places that represent historical memory or record or fictional accounts or non-fictional accounts are different portrayals of what happened during a certain time. And we're already starting to see that. We're watching a Netflix special where Cleopatra is portrayed as being black, and everything that they've shown of Cleopatra, even from, the facsimile that they were able to reconstruct from her mummy, she's not. She looks like she's Macedonian, right? She doesn't look that way, but they're gonna portray her that way. So you get Generation A on board. And remember, this is the Generation A, Pluto and Capricorn, started showing up in 2009, kind of still being born up through till 2024. And then it's all, who knows? Pluto and Aquarius. I don't think you call them Generation B. I'm not sure what we'll call them. But, I mean, even think of what they did to Generation A with putting masks on them, right? And really limiting their outside stimuli. It's kind of like, yeah, we're gonna keep you away from the so-called natural world. We're not going to let you bond with people. We're not going to let you see the face of. I mean, again, that's kind of a memory wipe in some ways. It breaks the chain of continuity in terms of childhood development to some degree. So then what happens? You can do just about anything you want. You don't have to have a thing called a paper dollar. The paper dollar and the root of money could be tied to colonialism and privilege, and it's just not how they're going to do things moving forward. Well, how would they do things moving forward? Well, I guarantee you that if they go down a certain timeline, the acquisition of money is going to look like a lot like a video game. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be a lot like a video game, and everything you do in your everyday life, you'll have like a digital avatar for it, and your digital avatar can level up. And so how you get those credits, well, they'll be determined by the people who make the rules of the game, right? That's how I think they're going to stage all of this, because that's how kids are being programmed. They're being programmed either through video games or through user interfaces like Twitch, where they're both in a game and live and people are watching them, and there's some sort of participation economy going on. We're going to get into that tonight. And I feel like, that's where a lot of this is going. And honestly, it's kind of terrifying on some level. On another level, I think that there's an underlying series of assets that we haven't looked at, and I'm going to try to bring them up tonight, so that you don't feel like you're just being goat herded into a dystopic slaughterhouse. So we'll try to have kind of a positive look into where this is headed. All right, let's see. Meow Meow says, I'm freaking out about World War III and the migrants being rounded up to fight. I know a lot of them from work. A lot of really good-hearted people. They're thrilled to be here and love this country. Well, that's the narrative, right? That's the narrative. It's really, I had a hamburger before tonight's show in town. I was eating. And they had the local news on. I rarely watch local news. And it was from the border. They had a news report from the border. So apparently it's getting heavy down by the border. Now they're starting to bring in like military equipment. They're bringing in like armored vehicles. They've kind of taken over a city park in Eagles Pass, and a lot of people, not a lot of people, but people that are opposed to that, they don't like it. They're also doing this thing with the Rio Grande, where they're setting up these buoys in the middle of the Rio Grande. Now, I don't know exactly how they work, but Saturn and Pisces, here you go. They're trying to create some kind of a border actually in the river itself. I think all they need to do is introduce some genetically modified piranha. Piranha that can't reproduce, right? You just set them loose for a season, and then I think that would deter quote unquote migration. No, I guess if you wanted to be more humane, you could do submersible drones and you could do shit. But so they're doing something now. I don't know what these buoys are going to do, but they're going to kind of run the length of the Rio Grande. Maybe it's going to make it harder for them to pass. I don't know what the story is, but you've got a bunch of people now who are up in arms over the fact that it feels very military-like down there. Well, gee, I wonder why. And I'm not sure how up and up Greg Abbott is. He's a Scorpio. So there's always at times, well, not here, let me rephrase that. There can be hidden agendas for Scorpios, unless they've gone through their shit. Unless they have really gone through their shit, Scorpios will have hidden agendas. It's usually associated with power. I think Greg Abbott's probably in that group. Yeah, I mean, with the true note in Aries, which we're going to talk about tonight, I mean, literally people will be up in arms. They'll be up in arms. That is the true note in Aries, up in arms, because there are going to be scenarios where people just are not going to feel all that safe. The other side of it is that people are fucking pissed off. They're pissed off and they're tired. It's kind of like those Joe Weider ads, where there was the guy at the beach and he gets sand kicked in his face and he goes off and he starts to lift weights and comes back to the beach and, takes care of the bully, right? That's kind of what's happening. And there's going to be a lot of True Note and Aries stuff going on. People taking self-defense classes, people working out, again, along the same lines, martial arts training, gun training, all that stuff's going to happen. People are going to get into it, right, over the next 19 months because it's in the air, literally and figuratively in the air. What's going on, Ryan? Good to see you. Glad you're here. Let's see, what else do we have? Tondar, Miss Nikki, Claire. Let's see, who else do we have? There's the lovely and talented one, Dr. Joan S. Glemma Spank. Hey, Glemma. Jeff Rosen. What's going on, Jeff? Doesn't the doctor have a video tonight? Or is a hard-working doctor taking the night off? Let's see, who else do we have? Muse Memorandum. I like that. I like the Muse Memorandum. Cool. Everybody can use a muse every now and then. Yeah, hey, if you're a creative person, have you ever run across a muse? I have. They're very interesting to be around. They're not interesting to have as full-time partners, but they're very interesting to be around. Trish Amato. Hi, Trish. All is good here. We're frying our asses off, but all is good. It is hot, hot, hot. Oh, is JJ the Muse Memorandum? Is that her new thing? Oh, that is cool, JJ. I like it. Baby has been demanding to get down and toddle about in the worst places. Well, that's what being a parent is about. You get to keep them out of the worst places and just kind of gently guide them to the best places. I remember those days. Salmon and green curry. I know. We're back in the 70s. Actually, this is the 80s. This is an 80s look. This is kind of like somewhere between Southwestern and California cuisine. Misbehaving too. What's going on? Good to see you. Let's Sandra Jack Shaw, SJS. Things are really crazy and very emotional right now. Road Trip 1981. Good afternoon to you. Or from here, it's a good evening. There's my man, Steve, Mr. Thor at the door. What's going on, Steve? Grace Gravity made it to the live. We're glad you did. Mary Lee. Look at Mary Lee bouncing back from that hospital stay. What a rock star. Fran, CC Jones, checking in. Hey, okay, hey, from North New Mexico. Okay, so our friend, Hey, okay, hey, wants to be a guest on the show. And from what I know, she has been through a very intense place in her life and is a living testament to perseverance. So we're probably going to have her on the Friday show one of these days and talk about her journey and path. Because if I don't, I've seen her biceps, and she just might hunt me down and kick my ass if I don't. So we're gonna get you on, Marge. We'll have a chat, find out what the life of Marge is all about. Mary Greether, what's going on, Mary? Good to see you. Peter Bayonne, what's going on, Peter? Always good to see you on Sunday night. I'm looking peachy. Hey, it is hot out, and this shirt, I have to say, keeps me cool. There's something cool about the shirt. Definitely cool. All right, here's our friend, Mr. Mark S., who's going to be joining us here in the Hill Country in October. And if you haven't been to the website, I'm gonna bust it out tonight. I have to go through all the greetings. I'll make an announcement, and it's going to be a great time. So you can finally sign up. We have the sign up, and our friend Mark is going to be there. And Saturday night is when we kind of kick back and have fun and do all sorts of cool shit. And last year we had David Palmer do a DJ set, and David just fucking killed it, man. He really killed it. Such a good set. And on Sunday night, we did karaoke, which it sounds corny, but it was great. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the karaoke up to Saturday night. And then Mark is going to be doing his cruelty-free tunes at the same time on Saturday night. So everybody's going to circulate through. And if you haven't seen his work, it's just absolutely fantastic. Really captures the lighthearted essence of the individual, and it's pure magic. So Mark's going to be with us, and I'll go through some of that as soon as we go through the meet and greets. Glad you're here, Mark. Let's see, who else do we have? Joseph Farewell. Is that what you're talking about? Joseph Farewell. Let's see. I have a sunburn. Not really. I wasn't out that much. It's fucking hot here though. It's like so hot, and the sun is so merciless. It's punishing. It's totally punishing. Disco Ball Death Star. That's funny. Let's see who else here. The Scaled Raven is here. Evangeline G, North Carolina, checking in. The Rainbows and Butterflies. Jamiroquai recently did a Virtual Insanity re-release. There we go. Actually, I like that tune. That is a catchy tune. He's listened to a few Stevie Wonder records, hasn't he? His mother was like kind of a jazz lounge singer. So he was sort of brought up in the business. Traveling Without Moving was the name of his record, which he actually took from another artist called Pete Nambluck. Song still stands. It's a great song. I love Virtual Insanity. It's his best song. And a great video to boot. Am I right? Sanzuff is watching us live from Sydney. Wow, that's pretty cool. Bet you it's a lot cooler down there in Sydney than it is here right now. Derek Reagan Walls, Indiana Jones taking the big flop, taking the big belly flop at the box office. Yeah, Benito. Is Benito here? I just saw his name mentioned. There's Leela Marie. Leela Marie is going to be with us too at our event. Why don't we just jump into that? Let's jump into the event page. Let's bust it out. I have to come up with a new image because the old one is, well, it's old. But I needed to get this up and about for tonight because I said we're going to bust it out tonight, and tonight it is. So here's what we got. These are the details. So Harvest Moon 5, it's going to start on the 13th, which is a Friday, right? That's when we all people show up on Thursday, but everything starts on the 13th, which is a Friday, and it ends Sunday night, and then people ship out on Sunday. Looks like I need to put the dates of the event in here. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? So here we go. This is here you'll get everything. So the annular eclipse is going to take place October 14th, just after 12 noon. So that's a Saturday, okay? And the entire hill country is sold out. We have a few rooms left, I think. So if you want to go to this event, you're going to have to contact the Inn of the Hills. It's going to come right over where we are. And our featured speaker this year, going to be close to 500,000 people in the hill country. Now, it won't feel crowded where we are because we have our own private space, right? So it's going to be pretty cool. Our featured speaker this year is Shauna Home. And if you guys are not familiar with Shauna, she is a really terrific writer and teacher. And man, she's a real powerhouse. And we're going to find a few ways to plug Shauna in when she's with us. She's the author of a couple of books. Love and Spirit Medicine should have been made into a movie. It is like a cross between Altered States and Eat, Pray, Love. It's better than Eat, Pray, Love. It's so good. It's such a good book. And then she wrote E Shell Wisdom, 7 Teachings from the Mind, Sacred Feminine. And then she's got a book of channeled poems called The Mushroom's Apprentice. The Crimmies are reprinting all of her books, and I think the Crimmies are going to be there at this event as well. So Shauna did something in her life that was tremendous. So I've known her since 2011, 20. You coming up here or what? I think I connected with Shauna around 2012, 2013, 2013. So going on 10 years, and we've been on each other's podcasts, and I haven't met Shauna in person, although that's going to change in October. And there was a period where she was just running on fumes, man. And I think she was living in her ex-husband's house, and it wasn't a really good scene. And then she had a vision, and of having her own land, property, the whole nine, right? And she started to really work at this thing. And I think within about 2.5 years, she got it. I mean, she got it. Now, she didn't just sit around and navel gaze. She actually had a plan and worked towards it. But it was, I don't want to steal too much from her talk, but it was through the ignition of her plan where other things came together that allowed her to manifest this place that she was looking for. And she's been able to kind of turn it around and move into another area and upgrade again, right? So Shauna's in Aries, and this eclipse will be in Libra, so she'll be in the opposite sign. And I feel like she'll be a really great revelator for this idea of the expression of will. And she's got a whole bunch of other tools at her disposal, and she'll be just an absolute gem to have with us during the solar eclipse. So she's going to do a presentation on Saturday. Friday, of course, when we all get together, I do the Friday forecast, and all you guys who are there, you get to be the guests. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love doing it. It's like a talk show, and I've always, I have, like, that's my fantasy, is to do like a talk show, a la Johnny Carson, with live guests and the whole nine, right? And so I get close to doing that when I get to bring people up. It's a lot of fun. So we do that on the Friday forecast, and then Friday afternoon we have a mixer, and usually I have some kind of event that kind of gets us a little closer together. And it's all the run up of the eclipse, right? And the eclipse is Saturday. So I think right around the time this eclipse is happening, Shauna's going to be she'll be speaking. What else we'll do? That's a whole other piece of the puzzle. And then I'm going to do a presentation on the eclipses and what's beyond the eclipses. So last year I was more of an MC, and David was, he was kind of the leading man, right? Like last year I like to create movies. These are like movies. So last year David was the kind of the star of the event, right? It's like, let's go get, I don't know, who would be the equivalent. Let's get Brad Pitt for this movie, right? That's kind of what it was. And he was great last year. Great presentation, great DJing, right? Cool guy to have around. So this year, a little bit different. I'll kind of slot into the astrological. See, Shauna will do her talk on manifestation and will and some other stuff, right? That's all going on. And then this is the eclipse path right here, right? So it starts here, right in Oregon, comes right down here, and that's where we'll be on 10/14/23. And then on Saturday night, Mark Simercheski, my bad, Mark Simercheski, he'll be here. Mark S for short. Cruelty free tunes, and he'll be doing his thing. And then on Sunday we've got kind of a like an interesting Health Day planned on Sunday. And Leela, who's in chat, is going to give a live demo of trauma release therapy. She'll bring some people from the audience and she'll do a live demonstration. We'll have Darlena there. You guys know Darlena from the Sunday night show. And she'll do a talk on human design and how human design has changed her life. And then I think one of Shauna's friends who is living in Dripping Springs has this really interesting Russian invention, this like high-tech technology thing. I forget the name of it. If Joan is in chat, she knows the name of this device, and she's going to give a demo on this thing, right? And I think that device will be kind of floating around the event. So it's going to be really interesting. And we're going to have, it just goes by really quickly. And then you get 3 meals out of the deal. Actually, you have 4. Friday night dinner, Saturday night dinner, Sunday night dinner, Sunday brunch. You get snacks and coffee throughout the day. And of course, you'll get refreshments during our mixer and then our whole Saturday night adventure with karaoke. I guess we could break out the yacht again if we wanted to. I got to work on some yacht tunes. So all that's taken care of, right? All you got to do is just show up. You could, if you wanted to, get breakfast from the cafe, from the diner, the restaurant there. It's pretty good. I mean, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you could, well, Friday and Saturday, Sunday, we have brunch. But for those of you who like to intermittent fast, we got you covered. We have like really, really good, healthy snacks, like organic beef sticks and organic apples and, no sugar, keto protein bars. We got all that stuff. We got it covered. Sparkling water, right? So all you got to do is just show up. You get to hang out. There's also a few other goodies involved, which I haven't talked about yet, but to be part of the event. And it's all here, right? So if you want to get a room right there, you gotta check in. I think there were about 12 rooms left, and once they go, they go. Now, I do have a Telegram page from last year. So if you are looking to share a room, you can go onto the Telegram page. And I'll try to put a link in here. Last year, I tried to put the Telegram link, but it didn't really work out. And here's a picture of the pool at night right there. It's a great pool. There's actually 2 pools. There's one that's one of those Event Horizon pools, which we've never really used, but it'd be cool to use. So this is the price right here, the total. But if you book now, right, that's the price, $650 until $822. So you've got over a month. You can throw $100 down, and it's right here, right? So you can either put in $650, or if you change the amount, it'll be $100. And that's your deposit. So if I get it, you're in, right? But you have to pay for the entirety of it by September 11th. So if you throw down $100 and you do it before 8/22, you'll get the rest of it for $550, right? That's a cool thing, right? You're locking in the $650 rate. But if you wait until after 8/22, it's $711, and you can still put down a deposit. You're just gonna pay a bit more. And hey, look, every little bit helps, right? For some people, that could be depending on what kind of car you drive, a tank of gas. So there you go. That's all the information you need for now. And then it just, for some reason, it just repeats here. I don't know why. It's the wonkiness of my website. So there you go. That's the big news. And what you want to do is you want to contact the hotel, get a room, because they'll be gone. Now, that's not to say that you won't be able to find some other room, maybe an Airbnb situation. Worst case scenario, I have my place is about 40 miles away. Worst case scenario, if you want to come and there's no rooms, and I trust you, you could stay here, but you'd have to drive about 45 miles each way to the event. And coming home at night, it's not too bad, but you probably don't want to do it. So that's the big news right there. It's all there on the website. If you are a member of the email list, the newsletter, you'll also be getting it, both members, subscribers and members. They're a little bit different. If you're a member, the latest newsletter will have the link to the webinar that we did about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Jupiter in Taurus and the Future of Money. So that's coming to people. And if you're new, you'll be added to the newsletter list, and we'll make sure you get that. And that goes out on the 22nd. So you got about 6 days. And you can always sign up. You can always join, right? $5 a month gets you some of those privileges. So there we go. Well, why don't we get into some astrology? And let's talk about kind of where we are right now. There's Peachy. Peachy, you going to join the show? Or are you going to be a little hotty toddy? She got out the other day. Any interesting birthdays today? Donald Sutherland's birthday is today. I've always liked Donald Sutherland. He's still around. He's been in some of my favorite movies. Peter Schickley, he was an interesting character. He was PDQ Bach. I actually saw him when I was a kid. When I was in band, we went to go see him. I thought it was highly entertaining. I was in junior high school. David Hasselhoff. Today's the Hoff's birthday. What kind of chart does the Hoff have? Oh, there's two different times. One where he's a Leo rising and one where he's a Scorpio rising. What do you think? Do you think the Hoff is a Leo rising or a Scorpio rising? Now, this is 29 Cancer with Venus in the first house. And then with his other chart, let me just see what that looks like. He's a Scorpio rising with Mars in the first house. I don't know. This might be an interesting chart. He was born in Baltimore, Maryland. Let's take a look at his. This is an alternate chart for the Hoff. And I'll tell you why this one might work. So this is rectified. And I'll tell you why this one might work. Do you remember when he got shit-faced and was rolling around on the floor eating a cheeseburger? And his kid got really pissed off at him. To me, that's like Mercury Pluto on his midheaven, right? Like that Mercury Pluto on his midheaven. I'll tell you a really interesting story. So when I was in the music, but let's just take a little more of this chart and I'll tell you the story. The other thing that's interesting about this chart and why I think this chart is a fit is Sun and Venus in the 9th house, because he was fucking big in Germany. Like David Hasselhoff was a major music star in Germany. Like us here, we couldn't figure it out. But the Germans loved him. And maybe it was the name Hasselhoff and he looked really German. And yet he had this American vibe. And a lot of times American culture in Germany is kind of a cool thing, like the cowboy and Indian thing. Maybe that was part of it. Or maybe it was just astrological because he was really big in Germany. I think this chart actually kind of fits for him. And even with like Scorpio rising and Mars on the ascendant, and what does he do? He's the star of Baywatch. And you know what do they do in this series? Well, he rescues people, right? I mean, Scorpio, water, Mars, first responder. It kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense that this would be an actually really good version of the rectified chart. And he had Knight Rider too. That was kind of a success. And when you look at Knight Rider, what is Mercury all about? It's all about travel, right? Cars, travel, and then we have Pluto, which is conjunct Mercury, which is dark, right? So this could be a really, I wouldn't have a problem with this being the rectified chart for David Hasselhoff. I'll tell you an interesting story. There was this guy, this is back in my music industry days, and I remember having this connection with this dude who was in Hollywood. And so he had connections with people that had like licensed music. Like that was his world. So we were interested in acquiring licensed music. And at that time, he was actually working with the Price is Right. And this was all pre-Drew Carey. And so I'm talking to this guy, and I said, look, I'll tell you, be the perfect guy to do the Price is Right. He said, who's that? I said, David Hasselhoff. He's your next guy. Like, that's your guy. And they actually thought about it. Like, he was on their list, but the cheeseburger thing fucked it all up, right? Like that whole scene where he's drunk on his floor eating the cheeseburger fucked up his chances for being the next guy in Price is Right. So they went with Drew Carey. But my instincts were right. Like, don't you think? I mean, Price is Right is kind of cheesy. And David Hasselhoff, I think, would have been a good candidate. All right. Anybody else? Any other interesting birthdays? Let's see. Tony Diaz. Who's Tony Diaz? I think it's Tony Oliva. Let's see. Who else? So far, Hasselhoff is the most interesting. Lazarus, is that Jock Purcell? No. American rapper, songwriter, and physician of Pakistani descent. So we have a rapper who is a physician. Oh, this guy's kind of interesting. Let's see. This is an interesting dude. I wonder what his music is like. Here, I'll show him to you. Kamran Rashid Khan. Anybody ever heard of this guy? He's born in 1982 in Detroit, Michigan. Have you ever heard of him? He sounds kind of interesting. Let's check out his chart. I like stuff like this. I like interesting and complex people. American rapper, songwriter, and physician of Pakistani descent in Detroit, Michigan. He is known for his singles God Flow and Man on a Mission, along with his songs Drug of Choice, Open Heart Surgery, Underdog, MTBK, and Decapitation Chamber, featuring Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, Bizarre, Royce da 5'9", Bohemia, and Ghostface Killah, respectively. So this guy has a track with Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and Ghostface Killah on Royce da 5'9", Detroit legend right there. Open Heart Surgery won the Underground Music Award for Song of the Year in 2015. The Music Decapitation Chamber crossed over 1 million views. Holy shit. There you go. Self-portrait. Let's check out his chart. That's a AA chart. This guy's a physician. Is he kind of rhyming over you? Well, he's sewing you up, chopping it up, and sewing it up. Sun, Mercury, True Node, Cancer. He cares. The man cares. This interesting chart. Saturn, Pluto, Mars, all in Libra, first house squaring all these planets. Very interesting. There's some dynamic tension in this chart, right? The guy clearly is a healer. He's a healer, but he's got some other things going on here. Venus and the moon in Gemini, kind of a split personality. Rapper by day, physician by night, or is it the other way around? Physician by day, rapper by night. Interesting. Very interesting chart. And he's got Uranus trine Mercury. Wow, is that right? Let's just see. No, trine the moon. Uranus trine the moon. Very interesting emotional expression. There you go. Lazarus the rapper. I know a fair amount about music, and I have never even heard of this guy. I am ashamed to say that. Okay, anybody else? Phyllis Diller. Oh my God. I couldn't watch Phyllis Diller when I was a kid. She freaked me out. And to this day, I don't get the humor. But she could take a joke. Man, like people used to unload on Phyllis Diller, especially at those roasts, and she could take a joke. Jimmy Cagney. Doesn't Jimmy Cagney just strike you as a Yankee Doodle dandy with his sun in Cancer? Look at that. His Venus is at 8 degrees, conjunct the U.S. sun. Of course, he's a Yankee Doodle dandy. And he's got that pugnacious Mars in Virgo in his first house, right on the first house cusp. And that's what you get with Cagney. You get Mars, right? Square Saturn, square Pluto. He's not going to take any shit. He didn't take any shit in his real life. He didn't take any shit in the movies. What you saw with Jimmy Cagney is pretty much probably what you got. Interesting character. Had little secrets, Mercury in the 12th house. But he acted for quite a while. I mean, I think the last movie he was in was what was that E.L. Doctorow novel? Oh God, another one of those movies that I tend to. That's interesting, right there. You get it. You get Mars with Jimmy Cagney. He's prickly, right? He slaps women. But he's also got that George M. Cohen, Venus and Cancer. And Pluto on the midheaven. What's interesting is a lot of times he portrayed gangsters. And Pluto is definitely the underworld. Right? I mean, Pluto is all about the underworld, and so is gangsters. That's what they called it. They call it the underworld. And that's what Jimmy Cagney was known for, his portrayals of guys from the underworld. And Gemini, sometimes he was a good guy, a bad guy with a good heart. Ragtime's the name of the movie. Thank you. My spirit guides are working overtime here. Ragtime, that's his last film. So he worked for quite a long time. There was a big gap, but when he showed up in Ragtime, it was like, wow, Jimmy Cagney. Look at him. And then that was it. One film, and then I don't think he lived too long after that movie. It's like that was it. That was his swan song. But very memorable part. Extremely memorable part. There's your guy, Jimmy. That's an interesting birthday. For sure. Especially the connection with America. Anybody else? This is turning out to be a pretty good day. Hasselhoff, Cagney, Lazarus, Phyllis Diller, Jim Dunbar. That guy, isn't he from The Dating Game? I think. Remember him? Gary Webb, our guy. That's the golfer. That's not the investigative journalist. I think he was a Virgo. Either Virgo or Libra. No, Phoebe Snow, Poetry Man. Today is Phoebe Snow's birthday. Anybody else? Neptune. Who's Neptune? British astrologer named Neptune. Mr. R.H. Penny, who wrote under the alias of Neptune. Let's check his chart out. Here's Neptune's chart right here. That's a pretty good astrologer name, except he was a Cancer. So here we go. This is Neptune's chart. Mr. R.H. Penny, who wrote under the alias Neptune, as was the custom of the day. I guess you had to have an alias. Of middle stature, pale complexion, he had black hair combed straight back and dark, sharp eyes. He was sincere and abstemious. He was married with one son who died upon reaching adulthood. Well, let's see what we got here. Okay. Capricorn rising, Neptune in the first house. Well, there you go. No wonder he went by the name of Neptune. He had a child. So let's see. We've got any squares to Pluto. Sun Pluto square, second house. Does it really connect in with kids? Fifth house. No, but Uranus does. So it's got a Uranus-Mars square. Let's see. Yep, there's a Uranus-Mars square. Mars in the fifth house, which is children. And I wonder if the death of his child was sudden versus, say, a long-term bout of something like leukemia or wasting. Right? Maybe it was. Maybe that's the unfortunate. And Uranus is squaring everything there: Moon, Venus, Mars. Interesting. Neptune Sun opposition, Neptune Mercury opposition. So he really is living through the persona of Neptune, isn't he? And in Aquarius, it's quite astrological. You see, people changed their names back then. People had pseudonyms. All right, let's take a look at the chart at the moment because that's where we're going. And we got a little sidetracked there by some interesting charts. But nonetheless, let's see what we have. Hopefully I've got the right location. And I got to change that. Let's bring it a little closer to home, shall we? Just a little closer to home. Let's go to San Antonio, Texas. There we go. And there are a lot of San Antonios. Okay. So many San Antonios. I wonder if David Hasselhoff would have been good as the host. I bet you. Do you think he would have been too big for the show? Drew Carey's got one of those personalities where he kind of blends in a little bit. I don't know. I have pretty good instincts. I think Hasselhoff could have been a fucking superstar for the price of right. All right, here we go. Let's get into the chart. Let's see where we are. Nope, not that. Right there. Okay. Capricorn rising. So right now my Saturn's on the ascendant. I should be quite authoritarian with my Saturn on the ascendant. How's everybody doing with Mars and Virgo? Are you digging it? Are you feeling compelled to act out some insane version of perfection in your life? It's kind of moved out of the odd, but now we've got Venus moving into the odd. Venus is taking up the odd position. It's an interesting placement, especially if you're in relationship. So I suppose the question would be, how content are you with either A, the notion of relationship, or B, your relationship in general? Because the inconjunct with Neptune could be a sense that perhaps something is missing. right? Like there could be all these elements that are there, they're on the surface. They could be good, but with the in conjunct with Neptune, something's missing. Like it's something's been hollowed out. That there is a bit of a void in the coupling. And the in conjunct with Pluto, sometimes that can be indicative of either a loss of passion or having a greater sense of amour, right? Or there can even be sometimes problems with intimacy with the Pluto in conjunct with Venus. And so you're dealing with that. So you have the potential intimacy issues and also a feeling like maybe there's more to relationship or a partnership, whether you have one or whether you're in one. And don't wait, that'll change because Venus will go retrograde. So if you're dissatisfied now, if this in conjunct is the precursor of the retrograde, it will send certain people kind of, in a retreat mode. And if not in a conscious retreat mode, a semi-conscious retreat mode, like pulling away. I wouldn't be surprised if, there are during this Venus retrograde where you may feel your partner pull away. So I'm gonna say that if that happens, or you're that person, it's not the end of the world, right? It's not the end of the world, but there is this movement, I think, of kind of wanting more. And the other thing too is, Leo represents our pastimes. It's not just, Venus and Leo being connected to love and relationship, but it's our relationship with our pastimes. And it feels like a lot of I follow sports a lot less than I used to, but I've been reading, for instance, I read this story about the head coach for Northwestern University who got fired because there was a hazing scandal that went on at Northwestern. It was like, okay, well, what did he know? What didn't he know? And if he pretended to put his fingers in his ear and didn't know the extent of like how debasing the hazing was, then he probably deserves to go. But then they fired the baseball coach. And I'm like, what's going on here? It's like, did the baseball coach, did he know? And he didn't tell? Or did they have hazing that was going on? It was just sort of, they're kind of going through and summarily kind of, starting to wipe these guys out, right? And I'm going to tell you to pay close attention to something. And it is, and I know we're getting into the sports world a little bit, but this is total Venus retrograde with the in conjunct Pluto, in conjunct Neptune. And that is the case against Daniel Snyder and the Washington Redskins, now Commanders. And one of the things that came out, so the NFL has been trying to get rid of Daniel Snyder for a long time. And one of the reasons why, and you can read some of the scandalous, trust me, there is scandalous shit in just about every ownership group in major sports. If you dig deep enough, you'll find some scandalous shit. Okay. Daniel Snyder's problem is that Daniel Snyder is probably one of the more conservative owners in the NFL. And at a certain point, I think Daniel Snyder got tired of the NFL and a lot of these other quote unquote groups who were starting to dictate how NFL owners, for instance, even his own team, right? They were the Redskins. And if you have followed anything related to that team in that team name, there were no Native American tribes that really made a beef about it. They really didn't care. Of course, who cared? It was the liberal gentium. Oh, we can't have that. That's racist. So he refused to change the name for a very long time. And, why would he change the name? I mean, he's got all this marketing invested, all this branding invested. And for a while, they were just the Washington football team, the WFT, the inversion of the WTF. But he was just like, Snyder's a Sagittarius. And, Sagittarians don't like to be told what to do. So there was an ongoing battle with them in the NFL. So the NFL decided that there was something going on with a cheerleader or some weird side thing going on. And so they went in and they decided to look at all these emails that were part of this, literally this congressional investigation against, what the fuck is this guy doing? Is he running drugs from Mexico? Is he trafficking children? Don't they have better things to do than to run a congressional investigative hearing on the owner of a football team to make sure that he's being a quote unquote upstanding citizen? Okay, so they got these emails, and in the emails there was some dirt that came from John Gruden, who was the head coach at that time of the Las Vegas Raiders. And John Gruden said something to George Allen Jr., George Allen's son, who was the general manager of the Redskins. And he made fun of DeMaurice Smith's lips. And DeMaurice Smith's lips are quite large. And of course, DeMaurice Smith happens to be black. So he's kind of making, because DeMaurice Smith, who's the player's representative, was also doing a pretty shitty job and making things hard on teams and coaches because he was advocating for less practice time and all the things that kind of get in the way of coaches. So I think Gruden had a bone to pick with them because of his representation with the players and the players union. So the story is that Daniel Snyder, because he was in hot water, leaked out these emails with John Gruden. And John Gruden got fired from his job because of this. And now John Gruden is going to go after the NFL. This is all Venus retrograde Leo stuff, right? This is the pastime stuff that I'm talking about, right? Total pastime stuff I was talking about. And I wouldn't be surprised, right? And Venus is also about things like litigation and representation. Would not be surprised if the National Football League starts to take it on the chin. The other thing that I think this points to with the National Football League, and I think this is going to be the big scandal, the Gruden stuff, like they can pay him off. They can pay John Gruden off. They can say, here, look, here's $25 million for this to go away. And Gruden may take that. He might go, okay, I'll take $25 million. Sure, why not? That was the bulk of my contract that was still left on the books when you guys kicked me to the curb. So whatever the number is, Gruden might get it. But I'll tell you where the NFL is going to get in trouble. And it's gambling. This whole gambling thing with this Venus retrograde. Remember, this is pastimes, right? Gambling is a pastime. And we have this in conjunct with Neptune and this in conjunct with Pluto. And more players now are starting to show up on lists where, guess what they're doing? They're gambling. Now, they may not be gambling on games, but the NFL has very strict rules, theoretically. I mean, there were it was Paul Hornung and Alex Karras back in the day. They gambled. I don't even think they gambled on football. They had to sit out a whole season Like they had to lose an entire season. The NFL at a certain point in time was really staunchly against gambling. Now, maybe not so much when it came to fixing some games every now and then, but gambling by and large, they were not going to have their reputation be besmirched. I think that's going to change. And I think this Venus retrograde, especially now with these inconjuncts, is going to line that up. I think the NFL and maybe even beyond the NFL, pro sports are going to have a gambling problem. And I'll tell you, if there's anything that'll take down pro sports, it won't be steroids, it won't be concussions, it'll be gambling. Because if there are too many players, or let's say like Pete Rose, like if Pete Rose was manager of the Cincinnati Reds now and convicted of gambling now, with the internet, Major League Baseball may not have made it through that, right? There'd be so many people that would come out, they'd come out and say how bad it is, how much Pete Rose was an example of white privilege, baseball's white privilege. They were the last sport to allow the color line to come through, right? Like if Pete Rose was caught gambling now, he could have brought down the entire sport potentially, right? But he wasn't. It's still there. However, that said, with this Venus inconjunct and the retrograde coming, clearly it could, because look where Mars is. Mars is in Virgo and it's tighty whitey. It's like, oh, no problem here. No problem here. We're good. Everybody just, follows the letter of the law. Oh, by the way, nobody uses steroids either. Well, we got rid of that problem a long time ago. I think as we head into training camp, I think the NFL is going to try to bury some of these stories that some of these players, and I'm sure they're on the rolls right now. There's this one guy named Jameson Williams who plays for the Detroit Lions, who was actually a first round pick and has the potential of being a very good player. He got busted gambling. And there were some other Lions who got busted gambling as well. Those guys got cut. And Jameson Williams got a 6-game suspension. Calvin Ridley got a 1-year suspension. That was 2 years ago. So keep an eye on that. We're coming up on a Mars-Saturn opposition too. That one's tough. I mean, could it fit into the rubric of gambling and sport? Maybe. But to me, that Saturn-Mars opposition just feels like you're getting worked to the bone and you're not being appreciated, right? You're just getting worked to the bone. And here's what I'm gonna share with you. If you're in a place right now where, and there are a lot of you out there, and you know if I'm talking about you, that you're so good and so conscientious at your job that you wind up doing the work for about 2.5 people. You wind up covering for other people who aren't as good. Maybe they're not as talented. Maybe they're in good with the boss, or maybe they're just lazy and the company has to cover for them, right? You know who you are. You're one of those people. I know I'm talking to one of you. And so you're not getting paid for 2.5 people, are you? No, you're not. And what they've done is they've rigged up this thing now where they said, well, you should just be lucky you have a job. Just be lucky you have a job. You're like, yeah, but I'm working 55 hours a week and I'm covering for you and I'm covering for this other person who's supposed to be doing a quarter of my job, and I'm covering for this other person who's supposed to be overseeing what we're doing. So why am I not getting paid more, right? So if you're one of those people and you've got this Mars-Saturn opposition, look for another job, because Mars is coming into a nice trine with Jupiter. Understand your self-worth, okay? Understand your self-worth. I know a lot of you got blown out by COVID. I know a lot of you are hanging on to the side of a cliff during COVID. You managed to kind of claw your way back up. You're like, man, I don't want to have to go through that again. But I'm telling you, this Mars Jupiter trine, if you want to level up and Mars is coming in and trining Uranus, like don't limit yourself. Do not limit yourself. If you're that person, if you're that guy or you're that gal, and you are conscientious and you're doing more than what you theoretically should be, and you're not being compensated for it, now is the time to look elsewhere. Now is the time to look elsewhere. And I would do that before Mars goes opposite Neptune, because when Mars goes opposite Neptune, what'll happen? You'll be snowed under, and you'll feel like a fucking victim with a Mars Neptune opposition, and you won't be able to really sell yourself. Right? It's always easier theoretically to look for a job when you have one. Right? Like now's the time. Now is a good time. Even with Venus retrograde, don't be afraid of it, because with Venus retrograde, you get to re-examine your contracts and say, guess what? I'm not really sure I'm into this. You know, I think I might be compensated better elsewhere. And, you know, maybe you'll get a promotion. The other thing to watch out for here, and this is more on the social side, on the social tip, is we're starting to hear more talk about reparations. And as Mars moves into this opposition with Saturn, right? And the retrograde, the Saturn retrograde, like looking back, it's like, wow, you know, all these people, man, they really suffered and they really built it, and they got to get compensated. It's happening in California. They're already doing it in, I think, part of Chicago. When Mars goes opposite Neptune, the cry for reparations is going to be really big. It's not that far away. And I think it's a real it's a trap. It's a total trap, because really what they want to do is they want to have this redistribution of wealth, which is what they've been talking about for years. It's a socialist bait and switch, right? It's a 3-card Monty. But if you follow the economics, like there's a guy who was a former San Francisco County supervisor, and he just was on one of these epic time shows about how bad California is. And he did the math on this, and he did the math on what San Francisco is putting together. And then the state of California, which is modeling their reparation program on San Francisco, it will absolutely, utterly destroy the economy. It will destroy the economy in California. And if they adapt that policy nationally, it will completely and utterly destroy the U.S. economy. Because there's absolutely no way, if you follow everything, all the breadcrumbs that the state of California and the city of San Francisco have lined up, there's no way that it can. It's like Cloward Piven on fucking 21st century steroids. Okay. And that's the Mars-Neptune opposition. We're getting started here, right? With Mars-Saturn. This is on the mundane level. You know, retrograde. Well, we need to be compensated. Well, first of all, you weren't there. We weren't there. And even in the state of California, there was never any slavery in the state of California. Okay. None. Zero. And if you want to be just and fair with the whole thing, like, who hasn't been oppressed? I mean, really, I'm Irish, and fuck, we were indentured slaves, right? You know, and then you had the slave trade coming up from the Barbary Coast. There's an absolutely chilling story. You can watch this. It's like a guy's account. I think he's from Finland. I think he's from Finland or Iceland. It's one of the lands. And these Barbary Coast slave traders come up there, and they fucking take him, and like, it's crazy. And he kept a diary. And eventually, I think he wound up being reunited with his wife and his daughter. Like the whole story's fucking crazy, right? But there was slave trade everywhere. And then even inside of Africa, you had African tribes selling other. I mean, it's the largest slave trade to this day still goes on in Africa, right? So this whole idea that they're going to fix all of our ills by doing this one thing, first of all, everybody's gone through it. Sorry, everybody's gone through it. If you don't like the message, you can always unsubscribe if you want, right? But that's the fact. That's the fact. And most people who've been polled, by the way, in California by this one guy, 80% of them said, we don't even want it. We don't want a handout. We don't want to be that person who takes the money. No, it's insulting to us, right? And what's interesting is that along with this, again, this is all California, they've got these anti-discrimination laws that are being cooked up, right, which are basically creating Jim Crow all over again. But so this is very interesting to watch Mars as it goes through Virgo, right? Because there's this stridency with Mars and Virgo too. Like the upside is, look, if you're underpaid and you're overworked and you know your worth and value, come on, this Mars Jupiter trine is meant for you. Level up, right? Mars is going to trine Uranus. Level up fast. But on the mundane side of things, right, we've all had to work fucking shit jobs. Unless, of course, you're going to be one of the people I'm going to talk about a little bit later. It's not a shit job, but it's fucking weird as shit, right? So there's that. Mars and Virgo is going to be very interesting. Very, very interesting. You're going to find that, like, when I think of Mars and Virgo, I think of like suffragettes. It's that prickly energy, that prickly Mars energy, and nothing is ever good enough. And nothing's ever good enough. Maybe you might look in the mirror one day. Oh, look, I lost 10 pounds. But that may be brief, right? A brief interlude of your ability to kind of maximize. I think Mars and Virgo is hard. And I think Mars and Libra has its own trips, right, on the other side of it. And man, Mars and Libra, now we're really swinging into full social justice mode. I mean, look out, right? Mars and Virgo, the sort of the enmity is kind of gaining momentum, right? And as soon as Mars swings into Libra, it's like, yeah, social justice warrior time. So this is an interesting period that we're dealing with here with these Mars cycles. I think Mars closes out in Sagittarius by the end of the year. So we got a few more Mars cycles to go through. Mercury in Leo, with Sun's going to be there. So Venus, Mercury, Sun, all in Leo. And man, the Sun is hot. And it's just going to get hotter. Like all that Leo is just going to accentuate the heat, right? It's just the way it is. We got the moon in Cancer, so it's not quite new. It's a balsamic moon. And I was kind of feeling that today. I was really feeling the balsamic moon today. And I'm like, kind of fucking bored. I had that. I hate to feel bored, right? Like I just hate to feel like I'm just doing the same thing every day. And we don't want to do the same thing every day, because we do the same thing every day. Like one version of, well, at least you're consistent. Another version of is it like you become an automaton. So today I'm like, I need to take a little vacation. I need to get out of this place. If it's the last thing we ever do, right? So we have this moon, and this moon is going to come around, swing around. We're going to have a new moon in Cancer, which is going to be quite odd, right? So this new moon is going to be in Cancer just as the sun is exiting Cancer. So we have the sun. It's going to be about 25 degrees. And we're going to have that new moon right on it, sun at 26. It's going to be really unusual. So it's going to be unlike kind of like normally the new moon happens earlier in the month, but it's way, way deep into the cycle. So then we're going to get it in Leo shortly thereafter. Then the sun follows suit in Leo. So it'll be an interesting time. Like, I don't know, yeah, it's like you're supposed to start cycles on a new moon, but or new projects on a new moon. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this new moon. What you may want to do is restart projects that you've already started, but you've kind of stalled a little bit. That may be a good thing to do, and especially with Venus going retrograde. So keep that in mind. But like you just feeling like, yeah, kind of burnt out a little bit with this balsamic moon. So by the time we come around next Sunday night, the sun will be in Leo. We'll do a whole Sunday night show on Leo personas, the sun itself, which seems to be just kind of being activated at a whole other level right now. Like it is brutal. And it's not just the heat, man. There's something about the light and the vibration of the sun right now, just off the charts, just completely off the charts. I get out of my car and I go from my car to wherever I'm walking, and it's like I'm almost like a different person going from point A to point B. It's like I'm trying to collect myself during that short journey. Does anybody else know what I'm talking about? It's fucking intense, right? It's totally intense. I do like what's going on with Uranus. We got a nice sextile to the sun right now, which is here. And we're going to have a sextile with the moon. So you can change it up a little bit. And if you're feeling bored, get out of your rut, right? Get out of the rut. There's nobody else that's going to pull you out of your rut. Get out of your rut. We're coming into a Sun-Pluto opposition. Wow, that's interesting, especially at 29 Capricorn. It feels to me, again, like there's something at that degree with the sun in Cancer that's kind of cherished, kind of something that we remember, and it's gone, right? It just goes, something happens, it just goes away. It's like, holy shit. Holy shit. Like, it could be somebody who's a figure, somebody who's well known, but it's like, holy shit, like it's gone. And there's this weird void with this Sun Pluto opposition. Feels cultural in a lot of ways. Like it's sort of like, whoa, what happened? What happened here? Right. And then it moves quickly into Leo. And here, I'll say this. Maybe this thing, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I'm gonna have to think about it more because I'm just coming into my brain right now. But when the sun moves into Leo, it's almost like, okay, we move on. We're just moving on. We're moving on really quickly. But it's like, no, hold on a second. Hold on a second. This is significant. This is significant. Something happened here. Something that we're accustomed to. Something that we have connected to in a way that's given us a sense of historical precedent. Like something happens, and again, it might be just the quote unquote way of things, but I'm not sure if that's really the case. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about 5 days from now. So Thursday, Friday. I wonder if it has something to do with the passing of somebody, right? Like the passing of, somebody who's like a, big time Americana. Somebody who really represents something very American. I'll tell you who comes to mind is Clint Eastwood. That's who comes to mind with this sun opposition. I don't know. I don't know if he's done playing Joe Biden yet, but no, some people think he's actually playing Joe Biden. Do you know that? Some people think that's actually Clint Eastwood playing Joe Biden. It'd be the role of a lifetime, wouldn't it? You never know. I mean, the guy backed Michael Bloomberg. I don't know what the fuck that was about. That was totally weird. Okay, what else? Anything else? Anything else? I think we're good. I think we're good for the chart of the moment. There we go. All right. Let's see. Where are we? We got 296. We're doing pretty good tonight. Thanks for all you 296 folks that have shown up here. All right, let's talk about Uranus and Gemini. Let's move into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into this. Hi, motherfucking strange. Because it's already kind of here. It's kind of here and it's kind of weird, right? It's really weird. Now, I haven't been able to figure out how to show something. Let me see if I can do this. Let me see if I can do this. I'll do this, and then let me see if I can. I want to play you guys something, and it hasn't been working on the screen share stuff. If I can do this here, find this thing. So this has to do with. Okay. So there's this weird thing going on with TikTok and Twitch. And it's fucking bizarre, right? This is, to me, this is, even though we have Uranus and Taurus, to me, this is Uranus and Gemini stuff. And let me see if I can play this thing. All right, hold on. This is not the only person that's doing this. And really, in some ways, I'm kind of at a loss for words. But let me see if I can play this. All right, so I'm sharing this. And okay. So let me turn. All right, that's up. Let me play it on the mic. How do I look on StreamYard? There it is. Okay. Let me play this on the mic because I haven't been able to get these things to watch this. Here, listen to this. Here we go. So, all right, let me tell you what's going on here. These people are making money, if that's even a person. Okay, let me play you another one. Let me play another one. Let me see if I can find one that's okay. So this is the one I played on my show on Friday. It's the same deal. Watch what's happening here, and I'll show you how it works.
Crunchy corn, yum! Kitty paws, pumpkin, yum! How spicy! Ice cream, yum! Kitty paws, ice cream, yum! Once we get to 350, I'll leave, I promise. Stinky swear. How spicy? Hot dog, yum! Hot dog, yum! Donuts, yum!
Okay. So what's going on here? So first of all, these people are buying tokens. They're buying tokens, and the tokens get turned into these food gifts. And when they give her a food gift, she responds to the food gift like ice cream, yum, 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 hot dog, yum, right? But there's all these other things that are going on inside of this strange hyper real world, right? She's obviously got filters on. She's got her little elfin ears. She's got her stars, her hearts, her moons, right? All these are symbolic, right? She's creating a fairy like character. She's a digital elemental. This she has created this well, this is what Miley Cyrus would refer to somebody as pansexual, even though she's not having sex, right? This is pansexual in kind of the true sense of the word. It's pansexual. Like she's an elemental who hangs out with elementals, sprites, and she's making a fucking fortune because she then takes these little pieces of digital food, which are tokens, and she turns them into money. She turns them into money. And there are people, young people, who are doing this. You see the mushrooms and all the other little magical totems, right? There are people who are doing this that are making between $100,000 to $200,000 a month. I'm not shitting you. Okay. I'm not shitting you. And there's one in particular who I'm going to show you in a minute who has kind of gone off the rails, and somebody's actually thinking that it's all strategic to get her more views and make more money. So to me, this is the precursor for Uranus and Gemini, right? And we're dealing with it because Taurus she's eating something, right? When we think of Taurus, we think of, something like, like this bottle, and there's spring water in this bottle, and I drink it. But with Uranus, it doesn't show up that way. It's like a digital pepper or digital ice cream.
How spicy. Ice cream, yum. Kitty balls. Ice cream, yum. Once we get to 350, I'll leave. I promise. Stinky swear. How spicy. Hot dog, yum. Hot dog, yum.
So the other thing that's associated with this, right, is that there are people on the other side doing all this that are getting off on getting her to do things, right? They feel a sense of power because they're getting her to go juicy, juicy, tootsie, tootsie, yum. And apparently even inside of that universe, whatever the fuck that is, right? The trills and the yums and the things like that are also triggered cues to kind of bring more of these tokens to the surface. It's like a whole other like pocket universe, right? That most of us really aren't aware of, and maybe we really don't care, but there are people that do. And there are people that are making a shit ton of money off this, right? And this gets back to this idea of, well, how do they create a new economy based on something that is based on nothing? That's how you do it. You create a game, right? You create a game. You create a hyper real experience where people have tokens that they're able to accrue. Now, let's say and we're going to get into this a little bit. The UN just signed off on this whole digital bank thing. I got an article I'm going to bring up. But if you're the World Economic Forum, those are your customers. That's who you want, right? You want those people. You want to set everything up so that they are interacting in a hyper real element. And then you can do anything you want once people get in that space. You can incentivize them to, act like a fairy elf version of a young Marilyn Monroe, or you can do any number of other things. Let's say the game is based on spite, or the game is based on some form of revenge. You could set it up that way. There's all kinds of games in the world, right? And you could have somebody like, doing something where they're ratting on people and they have a certain amount of data that's available to them. And like, oh, look at so-and-so, bad person, right? And they got a social credit score, and they take a hammer and they smash like a image of them with their social credit score, right? And they get points for that. And those points are accrued, and then they turn into social tokens that they're able to use somewhere. This is how they're going to try to incentivize the whole thing. This is why gaming is so popular. It's the new, with nothing grounded or rooted in anything Earth-like. Once we get out into 2025, that's how these things are going to roll, right? It's all about the virtual space, and it's all about creating so-called value inside the virtual space. And the virtual space doesn't even have to be like Meta, because everybody knows Meta fucking sucks. Nobody wants to go there, but people are happy to go on Twitch, and they're happy to put on filters and do all these other things because that's where the action is, right? What happens is if Twitch gets a couple of upgrades and their environments become even more elastic and have less of a grounding in this quote unquote world, right? It can get pretty fucking weird. It's already getting fucking weird. And let me show you another example. This is somebody who, now her name is Pinky Doll, and she's another version of what we just saw, and she's making about $100,000 a month, and she's one of the most famous versions of kind of this new phenomenon that we're looking at here. And again, these people, they sort of sprung up with Pluto and Aquarius, right? The high strange of Pluto and Aquarius. So this is Pinky Doll. I think she's Canadian, but she might be living in Paris. And here we go.
Hee-haw, yes, you got me feeling like a cowgirl. You ready? It's time. Hee-haw, yes, you got me feeling like a cowgirl. You ready? It's time. Gang, gang. Gang, gang. Gang, gang. Ice cream so good. Gang, gang. Gang, gang. Yes, yes, yes. Gang, gang. Gang, gang. Ice cream so good. Oh, take it, Ian. You got me feeling like a queen, huh? Rah, rah, rah. Slay, huh? Slay, huh? Oh, take it, user. What is the noise again? Quack, 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 quack. Rah, rah. Gang, gang. Gang, gang. Ice cream so good.
Okay, did you see that? So she knew how to trill, and she knew what the kind of the sonic code was right here, and watch it go from 5 up. Watch this.
Slay, huh? Oh, take it, user. What is the noise again? Quack, 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 quack. Rah, rah. Gang, gang. Gang, gang. Ice cream so good. Balloon. Gang, gang. Gang, gang. Gang, gang. Oh, what is that? Gang, gang. Balloon. Gang, gang. Gang, gang. Ice cream so good. Oh, thank you, Arpit. Yes, props. Thank you, doll. Oh, thank you, baby. This is so cute. Oh, thank you, baby. This is so cool. Ice cream so good. Balloon. Thank you, purple. Yeah, why is my white dress so I can match the flowers on my head? Beautiful. Oh, thank you, notification. You got me feeling like a queen, huh? Oh, grab, 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 grab. Oh, thank you, Yaya. Oh, he's so cute and fragile at the same time. Oh, hee haw, yes, you got me feeling like a cowgirl, right? Oh, thank you, baby. Wow, this is perfect for a first date. What is the noise again? Quack, 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 quack. Oh, thank you, Krista and Madigan. Wow, I got your name. A lot of gift for you. Oh, what is that? Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, thank you. You got me feeling like a queen, huh? Yes, yes, yes. That was good. Coconut.
So I know it's like completely insane. The shit's insane, right? I mean, in a lot of ways, that is like the definition of insanity. You got babble language. You have this kind of hyper real connection to people that are on the other side of that camera, like prompting her to do things. I mean, it's just completely fucking nuts. And at the same time, she's making a fortune, and it is a sign of things to come, right? It is clearly a sign of things to come, and it's only just starting. It's just starting. What happens if really gifted AI programmers get in the game and they start to create 15, 20 versions of her? What if somebody creates a version of her and she gets pissed off and she starts suing the person that created the version of her who's better at it in some ways than she is, right? I mean, we're going down a very slippery slope here. And that's just kind of one version of this, right? We haven't even really gotten into like this whole NPC culture. Like people are into creating like NPCs and animating them online and they're playing like marionette and puppet master. And it's just really high strain shit. And in some ways it's kind of troubling. Right now, she feels like she's having a bit of a breakdown with it. But then she comes back again and basically says, so I'll show you here. This is TikTok. So these are like NPC streamers, right? This is what they are. They're literally NPC streamers. And here's a guy who covers this. His name is Atozi. And she's breaking character here. And let's see, hold on a second. So this is her actually speaking in her human voice, but then she comes back again, and it feels like she's a character that's looping back in on itself. Here we go.
Do that. Waste your time, your energy, and your money. You buy my things and you put it on the web for free. Like, why would you do that? Why would you waste your time doing that? It doesn't make no sense to me. Like, I don't know who you are, what you want, but if I see you, I'm gonna sue you. So you better hide yourself forever. Like, for real. I don't understand. I went to Google, I write Pick It All Real, link it, and there's a lot of page. Not 1, 2, 3. There's a lot of page. Like, But anyways, it's all blood. It's all blood. Don't play with me. Don't play with me. You know, I'm a grown-ass woman. I'm not gonna fight with you. I'm gonna sue you. Don't play with me.
I don't think you could give people a worse response, because not only did she give them probably the response they wanted, but she said exactly where you could find them. But it gets so much worse.
I was reading the comments, and someone say there's 12 Twitter out here with my stuff on it. All my stuff on it for free. Like, do you really think that I was not gonna be a woman one day, a wife or something? Like, if I want to erase my life, I cannot anymore because of people like you. You just expose everything. Like, I have a kid. One day he might gonna go on it and say his mommy doing stuff you're not supposed to see. Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? That's insane. Why? Why are you gonna take my stuff and put it here? It's not yours. It's not your business. I can never go back because of you. This is insane. I don't understand.
Is she a real person? I can't tell if this is some 4D chess to promote herself or if she's genuinely blaming the internet for what she posted online. I thought rule number one of the internet is what's posted is likely there forever. Then on top of that, if you don't want it seen, bringing more attention to it is a terrible strategy. And if you don't want your kid to see you on the internet like that, you shouldn't have posted yourself on the internet like that. But then I guess she took a day break, cooled down a little bit, and came back the next day with this to say.
Okay, guys, I know yesterday I was kind of my feelings, but come on, guys, put yourself in my shoes. How would you react? Be happy and everything, or like be mad and try to figure out what is happening? Exactly. I'm doing this video for people who understand what I'm talking about. If you don't, go to my page and go to my first video to understand. And if you want to help me, come back here. So I'm asking people, if you have any links to any page possible, please send it to me on my Snapchat. I will respond to everybody today. So thank you so much for your time, love. If you're a real one, you already know what to do. So thank you, baby boo. Thank you, baby girl. Yes.
Man, I am so confused. So her plan to remove all this is to get her fans to go find all these sites and reward them for doing so. Wouldn't this also kind of incentivize the fans to make more of these sites to then report the sites they created so they can get rewarded? This just sounds like a terrible strategy. Why is she bringing so much attention to it? I don't know, guys. This is why part of me is thinking this could be just a smart way to promote herself. But naturally, she wasn't finished because now she wanted to address all the haters from the start of all this who essentially did all this because of her car and house.
Yo, guys, I don't understand something. When people see me outside with my car, they be like, oh, it's not her car. It's way too big. It's way too nice. She probably like rented or something. But here on TikTok, they be like, it's just a Kia. It's not a big deal. It's just a normal car. Nobody care. Like, why would you do that? Like, why all this madness for what? You know what? I learned something. No matter what you do in life, they're going to hate you. You can be doing good. They're going to hate you. You can be doing bad. They're going to hate you. And you can be doing nothing. Really nothing. Just sit there and breathe. They're going to hate you. So no matter what I do, it's fine. I'm going to do whatever I want. It is what it is. Yes. Hate me.
I mean, hey, she's understanding it. She should have just posted that video instead of the last 3 videos. But yeah, I mean, there is truth to what she's saying.
All right. So that is so fucking convoluted, right? It's so convoluted. Oh, look, I'm starting to get some purple bleed through. But what you're really seeing here, again, with Uranus and Gemini, we're not there yet. But you're seeing almost like a split personality, right? You're seeing like a split personality involved. On the one hand, she's doing this strange kind of hyper-real ritual, replete with trills and all the other things that go along with upping her score. And then you see the supposed real her, but is that really the real her? Who knows who's real in that skin suit, right? So this is like the high strange. This is where things are going. And then you get into this kind of very unusual world where there isn't just one version of reality, right? There are all these different versions of reality that are competing for one another. And I think that's kind of where it's going. Of course, there's going to be a big mainstream chunk. There's going to be a big mainstream chunk, but there's going to, it's kind of like, something that's coming into the atmosphere and there are pieces flying, the flying embers of the thing that's coming down through the atmosphere, and it's hot and it's about to crash. And I feel like that's where a lot of this is going. So in as much as we can see this kind of strange, like hyperverse, where people are doing things for money, and those things aren't even kind of money based. That's just kind of one version, right? You've got the OnlyFans world. You got all these other things that are happening. You've got people that are taking on the persona of, magical dragon unicorns, and some of that is in, quote unquote real life, and they're parading around with 15-inch dildos in public and trying to get your kids to think about that this is a great career choice, right? All this is happening. It's all happening, and I'm here to tell you that there is another version of whatever it is that we're seeing, and that version. And I don't get off into this area that much, but to me, that version is much more related to slippery states of consciousness. When I say slippery states of consciousness, I mean things like bilocation. I mean things like lucid dreaming. I mean things like kind of understanding the multidimensional relationship between us as humans and this so-called thing that's related to time, right? Like, I feel like that's the backdrop of all of this. Because if we don't have any ground that's circulating through the astrology until 2030, and we're having this strange panoply of multiverses that they're kind of setting up, and sometimes they're not even being set up. I'll give you an example. Let's talk about the movie Sound of Freedom. It's a very polarizing movie. There are some people who are very into it, right? It's kind of a heroic story. And then you have the so-called left, and they think it's just QAnon porn, and they hate it. And then you have like the hardcore black pillars who also hate it for different reasons, right? But now you have the black pillars who are kind of now on the same side as the hardcore left progressives. Like, they share the same like distaste for the movie, and maybe their criticisms are different. But again, what are they? They're kind of strange bedfellows, right? So even that movie creates kind of a hyper real community that normally would not exist. It's not quite a temporary autonomous zone, but it kind of is in some ways. For a few brief moments in time, you have a group of people that are united for the distaste of a certain media product, and those people, if they were to sit together in the same room, would probably wind up, getting close to killing one another. But that's what I'm talking about, and even for a brief period of time, that takes place. And so we're going to see more and more and more of this. And so the message is that reality is going to become way more fluid than we understand. And I think that's a good thing. And I think if you can, and this is going to be the challenge, I think if you can maintain your center while at the same time being able to explore and experience something that's non-local, you're going to get through it. Not only are you going to get through it, but you're going to find that the rise of phenomena is going to be off the charts. No matter what they're doing with 5G, with darkening the skies, with whatever, right? The things that they're going to do to make sure that we don't break through, that we don't hit this version of our own version of the singularity, right? Not Kurzweil's version, but our own version of the singularity. They'll do everything they can in order for us to not get there. They go through resets. They go through fucking wars. You name it, they do it, right? And we're coming to this point where I think it's going to get really weird, but also weirdly interesting. And the real test is, can you stay grounded while at the same time being able to be more fluid in terms of what we call reality? Because I think that's going to be the real test. And if you're somebody who is spiritually adventurous, this is going to be your time, right? If you're somebody who wants to explore the idea of multiple dimensions, or things like out of body experience, or lucid dreaming, or anything that is going to be representative of a period of time where everything speeds up exponentially, you'll like this time. You'll feel at home. Even though around you it'll be fucking high strange, I think there's a great deal of potential. There's a great deal of potential to experience something that is beyond the 3D matrix. Because that's kind of what we're seeing, right? These people, in their own weird way, in their own strange kind of infantile NPC way, are pushing the envelope of what it is to theoretically be a human and make money. That person's making $100,000 to $200,000 a month, learning how to do trills and thank you, baby, and yum, yum, ice cream, slurp, slurp, right? It's fucking ridiculous. And maybe it's debasing, but there are people out there that are like slaving their asses off and performing theoretically very human functions, and coming home at night and figuring out where they're gonna get rent, for the next month. And I'm not saying that that's what they should do. I'm not saying that they should run off and go to Sluicy Juicy Camp and learn how to do that. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that what's going to be available is going to be very, very different. And I think there's some value in it. If you're willing, if you can kind of disconnect in some ways from, it's going to be really tricky, because on the one hand, like the high strange will be so weird that if you can't kind of go into zero G with it, like you'll lose your bearings. But on the other hand, if you can, in your own way, I think the spiritual and the multidimensional possibilities are through the roof. Like that's where the gold is going to be over the next 4 to 5 years. And there are a lot of people that are working on that stuff now in their own way, right? And we'll have technologies that'll help accentuate it, and maybe even push the envelope a little bit. Some of which I think are going to be at the event. What's it called? The actuator or something like that. It's a really interesting Russian device that works on like this quantum healing effect. Anyway, we're hoping we may be able to catch a bit of a wave at the solar eclipse, and we've got some interesting things planned. So we'll work on it. We'll work on, see if we can catch the psychic wave that's rising, the multidimensional theater. And it's not just available for, these developers, right? No, this is the kind of the as above, so below part, right? The as within, so without. Now we're into Terrence McKenna territory. Now we're into novelty. Now we're into Robert Anton Wilson territory, the cosmic trigger, and all this phenomena happening at the funnel of the end of time. And we're at the funnel of the end of time. 2030 is the beginning of the new time. So between now and then, everything's going to funnel into it. And we're just going to be hit with all this incredibly crazy cosmic trigger, high strange, multidimensional novelty. And I don't even think you're going to need drugs. I don't even think you're going to need ayahuasca or DMT. It's just going to be in the air. And if you can go with it, you're going to learn a lot. And you may even learn how to slip through things, right? You may learn how to slip through gates, space fences, things like that. You may learn how to navigate through the matrix in a way that could be very, very helpful. in the days, weeks, and months to come. There was one time when I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and let's just say we were on another plane of existence, and we're going through the crowd at this club, and he turned around. I was right behind him, and he turned around, and I wasn't there. Right, like I wasn't there, and then he turned around and he looked back, and I was. He said, "Holy fuck, where did you go?" He said, "I was here." He said, "No, you weren't." He said, "You just blinked out. Like I turned around and you were not there." And I turned around again, and I was right behind the guy, right? And some of these things happen, and sometimes we don't have any control over them, right? That's the phenomena of the high strange, and I feel like that's kind of where we're headed. And in some ways, it can be very exciting. In other ways, they'll tell you it's the devil's work, right? So I'm here tonight to tell you to not be too freaked out. Because all the other stuff that we're seeing is really symbolic of like something bigger. Right? Something bigger, something way, way more complex than we can wrap our heads around. And hopefully we'll be able to grasp a heroic dose of reality or hyper reality as it comes towards us. So here we are, right? We're in this phase right now. The UN is kind of doing its thing, right? We've got right here, this just came through. The UN is part of this in a very big way. The UN started when Uranus was in Gemini. And I'll show you exactly what these guys are doing. Exactly what they're up to. The UN has ordered banks worldwide to begin issuing mandatory digital IDs to all customers and refuse service to anybody deemed non-compliant or blacklisted by the globalist organization. And they want to bring us closer, right? They want to bring us into one world where we're all taking care of one another like brothers and sisters, right? So title, Our Common Agenda, Antonio Guterres' draconian plan should be given the green light September 2024 during an event dubbed the Summit for the Future. So it's right around the corner, right? We're talking about a year from now, and that's when Uranus and Jupiter, guess what? You know, that Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in Taurus in the beginning of the digital currency, which both Mark and I believe that's really when this thing is going to pivot. Now, what's going to be fascinating is whether or not it will be accepted on a state level or on a local level, right? We saw that with DeSantis saying, look, we voted it down. The first thing I'm going to do if I'm president is I'm going to make sure that there is no CBDC. That came right out of DeSantis's mouth. Now, he may bait and switch it. He may have something else that sounds a lot like it, but it might be a different name. So this is just really fascinating territory. Look, I'm here to tell you, don't give up hope, right? And when things get so weird and strange, not even the controllers can control it. They can't. They can't control every fucking thing under this planet. They may act like they can, right? They may be able to create a production that makes it look like they can, but they can't. They can't control everything. And they know that. They think they can. They have this wet dream that they can, but they can't control everything. And that's when it'll get very, very interesting. Don't let yourself get trapped in the control matrix. Okay? It'll take some practice to not get trapped in the control matrix. And we'll track that along the way. That's going to be part of our new curriculum here, to stay out of the control matrix. You stay out of the control matrix, they're not going to have the power to lasso you into their so-called reality, right? And look, This is not some kind of godless strategy or tactic. Believe me, I think there's a creator behind all of this, even these so-called gatekeepers on this planet. Yeah, absolutely. But there is a way through, right? There's a total way through this thing, and it's to not be conscripted. It's to not be of this world. And if you're not of this world, then what are you? Then you're an initiate, a conscript into a new emerging reality. And I think that's where it's going to get real interesting. So look, you're going to see high strange. It's going to be weird. But guess what? There's actually a pretty interesting side to it. And a side where you as an individual can experience some very liberating phenomena, which can bring you to a new understanding as to what this world is about and what it can be. So don't give up hope. Don't tap out before it starts getting good. Now look, is it going to get intense? Sure. Absolutely. We've got these eclipses coming. We've got all this, hardcore Aries energy coming, and a lot of people are going to be down to throw down. Okay. There's going to be a lot of very aggressive energy in the air, and you just may have to defend yourself. You may have to make a stand somewhere along the way, right? Because with Aries, there's no bullshit. There's no playing around. If you're the samurai and you pull the sword, you're going to kill somebody, right? That's what it's about. So yeah, it's in the air. Take advantage of it. Learn some martial arts, get strong, develop some willpower, and then be ready for the high strange, man. Buckaroo Banzai, fifth dimension. All right, 222:34. Why don't we get on out of here? Let's see. Let's see. Some good comments in here. Silent Murmur is a good comment. Trying to enforce these weird agendas has only cost them billions in revenue, so hopefully they choke themselves out. That's a really good point, right? Like I brought that up on Friday with Trump and how Trump was really a major disruptor, and they had to throw all these resources at Trump just to stop Trump and people who were fed up and said, okay, this guy, theoretically might have a voice for us. You're right. And there's that movie THX 1138, which is George Lucas's, I think it's his best movie. Although I do like American Graffiti. But in that movie, dystopia has a price. And when they go over budget, they drop the program. That's a really good point, Silent Murmur. Excellent point. What else? What other comments here do we have that are good? I love that. I love Buckaroo Banzai. It's one of my favorite movies. 88, We All Rotate. That's cool. I love that one too. Let's see. Oh, we got a Steve Letro signing. American Graffiti. American Graffiti is so good. It really captures a time and an era. I get what you're saying, Robert. Yes. You know why? Because they want people to be in this kind of binary world. And yes, there is a binary world. But they have a weird version of binary, right? Their version is everything around you is meant to put you in a state of hell and suffering. And I don't really believe that. Let's see, there's another one. Let's be real. The wet dream about being organized enough to make anything work smoothly enough to function. Totally agree with that. Liza Wolf says, been dancing the dance, staying outside the control matrix for years. So the dance continues. Knight of Cups. What does he have to say? Knight of Cups always good. If they control economy, energy sources, the military, they'll try to control us. That's if they control those things. I'm not sure they can completely control all of them. They might have a handle. One of the things that I remember watching one of these extreme travel guys, right? And he was somewhere in the Dominican Republic. I've told this story before. And he was buying pineapple from a dude on his bicycle, and the dude had a big cart of pineapples in front of his bike. And he took a machete and he chopped the pineapple up and he cut the top off and sliced it. And he put it in a plastic bag and he sold it to the guy for like, I don't know, 50 cents or something. Like, how the fuck are you going to control that guy in the bicycle chopping the pineapple with a machete? You're going to set him up with a digital Q code and a currency? It's just not going to work. Now, they may try and do it here in the United States, but they're not going to be able to do it for the entire planet. Trust me. They can't wire it up to that degree at that local of a level. Can't happen. Let's see. There's another Liza Wolf comment. When we live beyond the binary and multidimensional, being in the world but not of it, embodying something. Yes. You absolutely get it. You totally get it. Here she is again. Exactly. Pineapple machete guy lives outside the bonds of the control. Absolutely. He's not fucking rich, but guess what? He's got his pineapples. He's got his machete. He's got his little place, and he'll stay out of the long arm of the matrix. You absolutely get it, right? I saw that video of the pineapples. Right, exactly. Krista Royce, I really like this idea of being a huge opportunity zone for those of us committed to authenticity, integrity, and organic humanity. We'll ponder. Yep. There we go. There we go. Let's see. Who's the jackass? I don't know who the jackass is. Every landscaper I know wants to be paid in cash. Absolutely. It seems like there's mostly appearances of controlling things. Well, in reality, nobody's accepting these bizarre dysfunctional agendas like fetishism on naval bases. Isn't tolerated. You're right. These are like really important talking points. It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? That's what they're giving us. They're giving us the Wizard of Oz. And at some point, like, we're going to pull back the curtain and we're going to see who's back there. And they're going to do everything in their power to create these scenarios that are dystopic. But I'm telling you, it's not going to go that way. And then once people unhook themselves from that, and again, the astrology points to this, it's going to be the fucking Wild West out there, right? Total Wild West. Let's see what his user 13 have to say. Can't even wire up the U.S. that way. Simply don't have the infrastructure as a competence of clients. Yes, that's true. That's true. We're dealing with the Confederacy of dunces, and they're not very good at carrying out plans. Let's see what else we have here. Southwest Florida real estate losing. September 11th felt like the beginning of the end. It was probably before that, but that was the end in public consciousness. Well, that's a ritual. That was an absolute ritual, and it was the beginning of the end. Absolutely. We've never been the same since 9/11. That was future shock. You could connect that back to Kennedy as well, if you want to go back far enough. Yeah, really great comments. Absolutely. Let's see. Everyone chatting shite saying manifest love. I don't know. There's look, what else are you going to try to manifest? Right? Are you like, let's manifest indifference? I mean, maybe there's some value around indifference in certain areas, but I think there's some interesting comments in here, and I know where you're coming from, right? Like sometimes it gets a little too much on on the the love is love tip, but on the other hand, um, I think there's a real value in like real love, right? Like real love, like love that you can't necessarily quantify in a 2 or 3 sentence line, and sometimes that kind of love will catch you really by surprise, and a lot of times it will be through the action of a total stranger, right? And a total stranger just kind of helps you out in a way that you weren't really prepared to do or prepared to receive or expect. To me, that's when it gets really interesting. It's like, wow, you just did that. You didn't have to do that. Like we expect our family members to love us, or we expect like people in our circle to love us because we have familiarity, we have bonds. But when it comes from outside of that, that's when it gets really interesting. That's when it's like, man, that's cool. That's cool. And we've all had experiences like that where out of the blue, somebody has done something for us that we did not expect, and was really very unconditional when it happened. So let's see what else we have. But I hear where you're coming from. Let's see. Who else do we have? What technology are they using to manipulate dreams? Well, that's a good one. That's a good one. Well, I think they could probably jump in on your router, right? They've actually been able to um, figure out through your router how to see you in between walls in your house. I think there's a lot more going on in the frequencies than we understand, and so we have these frequencies everywhere, and they've been working on this stuff for a really long time. Right? This goes all the way back to, like, there's somebody who follows the show, and um, I would call a friend, right, who was part of the whole Montauk thing, and has a whole side of his prehistory of being used for psychic manipulation and a bunch of other stuff. So this stuff has been going on for a long time. A lot of the psychotronic experiments, have been happening for a while. I think one of the guys that was doing a lot of it was what's his name, Michael Aquino from San Francisco, who was based right out of the Presidio. And I think Michael Aquino was friends with uh, Eldrick Woods Sr., Tiger's dad. And Tiger's an experiment. Tiger's a total experiment. And his father holds 2 master's degrees in behavioral psychology. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tiger crossed paths with Michael Aquino. Look up Michael Aquino and psychotronics. Okay, great show tonight. Thank you everybody for being here. I think what I'm going to do is I'll come back next Sunday, hopefully, if I'm not too burnt out, and we'll do a true node thing in Aries. We'll go around each house, and we'll see kind of what's up, where you want to explore the new unknown, pioneering into new territory in your charts, which is what Aries is want to do. Thank you for being here. You got a link now to the event, and I hope to see a lot of you there. And I'll be talking about it a lot. And I'll have Shauna on my show at least once before the event itself. And then maybe we'll have Mark come on and we'll do another kind of jam session with some illustrations, which is always fun. Okay. Thank you for being here. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. Mods, you're the best. Great chat tonight. Great questions. Super smart group. Totally with it. We'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.